Here we are. I promised my coworkers if the Bears lost the Packers, I would smash everything around me. I almost broke that rule. And by halftime, Corstian. So before I ask you how you're doing, all I gotta say is two words. Bear down, baby. I lied. Those
Bear
are three,
down.
but wow. Wow. That was we'll get into that game when recapping, but that easily has to be my favorite my favorite Bears game
hmm
I've seen. Like just just watching. Because
hmm
and it's not even the Super Bowl or the playoff wins in 2006 or 2011, like with the Seahawks, like that. That was special. That was
hmm
special. But how are you doing? Hope you're looking forward to the Broncos making their playoff debut this year.
hmm
So, what you up to? What's been going on? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling a lot better compared to the cold that I had last week. So that's one big positive. I did watch basically all the playoffs. I think I missed like maybe the first half of the first quarter of like the Texans Steelers game. Honestly, I probably missed like at least over half of the Buffalo Jacksonville game. But I did a decent job following the rest of the playoffs, and um, yeah, just a lot of good football this weekend. Obviously, it comes with the teams that actually qualify for the playoffs. It's always going to be a good team versus a good team. Whereas during the regular season, you see a lot of good teams just trouncing on weaker competition. Not all too often you get to see a lot of the potential conference championship type games or Super Bowl level games. Where I think it was like the Rams or something faced all their AFC opponents early in the season, so you couldn't see any of that. It was like the Broncos versus the Packers was kind of a rare potential Super Bowl matchup when they faced like 4-ish weeks ago in the regular season. But now it's all the best of the best versus the best of the best, which creates these really awesome games.
And remind me, are the Packers in that best of the best discussion right now?
They are
Just wanted to
not.
check. Okay. Okay. Good. Good. Just wanna clarify because you mentioned potential Super Bowl matchup, and the Packers are no longer qualified, so that can't even be
Yeah,
that. Okay.
yeah,
Just wanted to
yeah,
check there.
yeah. No,
Just
for
a little bit
sure.
of trolling, but okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Pretty much up until the fourth quarter of the Chargers and the Patriots game onward, and then the Monday Night Football game. Every single one of these matches were decided by a single possession and decided late.
hmm
So to look at that, that's a great playoffs.
hmm
That was a great wild card round for the most part. Um, snooze best on the Steelers and the Texans. I felt like the Texans were handing the game on a
hmm
silver platter to the Steelers to take it, but the Steelers didn't want to take it. So then,
hmm
like halfway through the fourth, the Texans were like, "Okay, screw this. We're just gonna win." And
hmm
that's what happened. So we'll get into that game. But let's start with the Rams and the Panthers. Just talk me through what were your takeaways, and we can kind of discuss while I have some of the highlights playing in the background for those who
hmm
didn't get to see. But
Okay. Yeah. So for this Panthers Rams game, I remember I texted you saying that the Panthers should just try to schedule playing against the Rams every single week of the season because they play really good football here against the Rams. Um, it turned into a situation where whoever had the football last was probably going to win the game, and that just happened to be the Rams had the football at the very end. I mean, technically the Panthers did, but it was kind of that awkward last drive. And even then, they did pretty well there. But the fact that you gave enough time for Matt Stafford to drive down the field and comfortably score was really the downfall of the Panthers. But the Panthers did play a tremendous game, I think. Um, a lot of people, even though the Panthers had won earlier in the season, a lot of people had written them off. I think we do have, bona fide talent in Ted McMillan and Jalen Coker. I know there's question marks of like, it's both of their first times, in these high stakes situations. And I think both of them did rise to the occasion pretty well. And then Bryce Young, obviously, like kind of similar into my mind with like JT McCarthy in like the fact, like I thought that Bryce Young would not get phased by being in the playoffs, due to just his collegiate success. In the same way, I was like, if JJ McCarthy's gonna suck, it's not gonna be because he's not big enough for the game. Like he has faced that type of competition. He's been under the big lights in college. It just kind of up to his own ability, physical football ability to succeed in the NFL, if anything. And we saw that Bryce Young did not shy away from, the playoff lights. And obviously, there's always question marks of like, can Bryce Young get better? And it seems like he has been getting better at a pretty slow rate, but it is improvement nonetheless. And so I think there's good things to look forward to in Carolina next season.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you saw the early interception here, but I think the thing that stood out to me was like even in the postseason, people know the ball is going to Puka primarily, but they still can't stop it. Like the simple out routes and how they put people in like different possessions. Like Dante Jackson and JC Horn had heck of a games, but like the plays that Puka made on like these first two touchdowns and just like completely taking over the game to start, like it looked very early on that the Rams would kind of dominate. But then the defense started to step up, and Dante Jackson in particular really stood out to me looking at other facets. And obviously Bryce Young had a heck of a game and pretty much put the Panthers in position to win. It's just the defense that let them down at the very end. But yeah, just overall great football. Even the scramble ability you see by Young, very like he's starting to be more confident and comfortable, like navigating great NFL pass rushes. So those are a couple things that stood out, especially Coker too. Like Coker had a bad drop. I don't remember if it led to an interception or not, if that was already played. But like since that moment, he was clutch. He is going to be a key focal point of the Panthers. I know Ted's there, and I know he still has some workings to be a wide receiver one, but Jalen Coker is a solid wide receiver to build around. And like, okay, that was McMillan, but the Panthers should be proud of the way they handled their season, all things considered. But they do have to get a little bit better, and I think having a taste of the playoffs will help them see that.
Yeah, it just seems like they have a good foundation. Also, Bryce Young is only 24 years old. And like, yeah, I have some hot takes about CJ Stroud and Bryce Young and those duos. But I don't know, we can talk about that later. I don't know, but yeah.
Let's hear them. Well, what are they?
At this stage, I think I take Bryce Young over CJ Stroud.
Okay.
By quite a bit, actually.
It started Bryce Young's first year. I don't think he could have said that, but now looking at the body of work between the two of them, like I think it's tough because you expected CJ Stroud to keep ascending after that fantastic rookie season, and you've had offensive coordinator changes, you've had line struggles, and then like you started to see him pick it up like this season in the back half, and you're like, wow, like you had me saying like obviously the defense it's great, it's amazing, it's elite. But CJ Stroud has gotten a lot better, and the Texans like would not be surprised if they're in the Super Bowl and look at them in the divisional round now. But after the Pittsburgh game, you had me looking at CJ Stroud like 3 turnovers early. Like at this stage of the season, and some of them are like he's just not seeing the pressure when he releases the ball, and it's just like poorly timed where they're avoidable turnovers to me. I'm like, you could take the sack in this situation. I feel like. And you just did not expect to see that out of CJ Stroud after 1 year. Whereas with Bryce Young, you see him steadily get better, like after getting benched early in his career and like having to start back up and get his confidence up, and then new head coach who was the previous OC. Like it took a lot to see how would Bryce Young develop, and I think we started to see him become more confident in this game. So I'm not a total hot take to me, honestly.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I think CJ Stroud might still be a technical better quarterback at this stage in their careers, but I think like the growth that Bryce Young has had, like I don't like I'm at a point where I'm like CJ Stroud might be or is honestly like in my head a replaceable quarterback that the Texans can definitely upgrade from, and like if the opportunity allows it, like if I was the Texans, I would pick up a better quarterback if it were to hit free. Like there was like the drama with like Joe Burrow or a couple of years ago with Lamar. Like are they going to get traded or not? Like it's in a heartbeat, and like regardless of the contract, it's like like it
Now,
feels
here's
like
an interesting question.
yeah. And Stroud has gotten worse almost every year since his rookie year. It feels now. It kind of feels like Mac Jones, and I feel like that's CJ Stroud's current
I
like.
was about to bring him up.
Mhm.
Would you have Mac Jones or even Malik Willis starting for
Yeah.
the Texans over CJ Stroud?
I feel like I could say yes. I would rather have at least Mac Jones. I mean, I feel like we could. The thing that scares me with Malik Willis is like, obviously, I think the Packers have a good system for him. He has a unique skill set in terms of like his rushing capabilities, and it's like I don't know how well that transfers from team to team with Malik Willis. But I mean, he's still passed really well, so I do have faith. But I feel like Malik Willis and CJ Stroud are really comparable right now. I wouldn't really hate you for choosing one over the other. But I feel like the way Mac Jones played this season, like I'd almost want Mac Jones over CJ Stroud in Houston. Honestly, like I was texting you, like, give me Davis Mills starting the rest of the playoffs over CJ Stroud.
And
Because
they
like,
went pretty much undefeated with him as quarterback when CJ Stroud went out, right?
mhm,
So like I think it's just far as like operating the offense, like CJ Stroud's just a tick late. Could it be correctable? Yes, but we'll we'll just have to see. Now,
mhm.
of course, yeah, knowing this, I think you put it out there in the universe that if CJ Stroud throws for 400 yards on the Patriots, you might have to walk some of this back. But
Yeah, well, I mean, like the
but
thing too with CJ Stroud is he will have a game where he has a phenomenal like a phenomenal performance, and then he'll string that with like three back to back to back, like average to below average performances, and then you'll have another great game, and you're like, wow, like this is the guy, like you'll have that great game where it's like, oh, this is the guy we expect CT Stroud to be, and then he has those middling to below average performances, and you're like, dude, like what are we doing on offense? Like it's like early in the season, I was like, I think D'Amico Ryans is a hot seat candidate because it's like they can't seem to get it to work with CJ Stroud. And if he played so well before, you'd expect a coaching staff to be able to elevate this. They can't, but then like you get rid of CJ Stroud and have Davis Mills in for a couple weeks, and all of a sudden the offense seems to be running perfectly fine. It's kind of smooth sailing for the team, more or less. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I guess Ryan shouldn't be on the hot seat because, CJ Stroud went down and they played great football on offense.
I think it's crazy talk. I think Ryan's has done a great job as the coordinating the defense. That is kind of what he was like his calling card being hired as the head coach. But I do have concerns with CJ Stroud since this rookie year. But I'm not ready to pull the plug on him yet. I think I think you're right. If there is a better option, you got to consider that. But I'm not running out to look at that option. I also want to see what Woody Marks would do, and if we can get an upgraded tight end for the Texans, how that influences it. Because I think they're just starting to get those rookie receivers, to play really well. So it's not just the Nico Collins show, and it remains to be seen if Nico is going to miss this important game next week. But I think it's a little too early. I think it is a shame that he's regressed a little bit, given how elite this defense is. So you'll be thinking about like what a grand opportunity this is. Like if you squander it, if CJ Stroud is not able to pick it up. So I think it makes for an interesting conversation. But
I mean,
it's hard because of this. You had guys looking at Matt LaFleur and saying like, should he be fired after the Bears loss? Like, I just think with the way the culture is now with the NFL, like people just want these snap decisions immediately, and I'm just a patience guy, I guess. So where I stand on it.
Yeah, yeah, and like really, I'm not saying like Ryan's is on the hot seat now at all. I mean, like this was back when they were like 2-4, 2-5 at the start of the season, and it's like they can't seem to get things clicking with C.J. Stroud, and that's when I was like, he could be a potential hot seat candidate. But obviously, they turned that around later in the season. Outside of how the offense performed this previous game, the team has been extremely hot. The defense seems near unstoppable, where the defense really scored almost feels like most of the points for this team in their wild card matchup, which isn't necessarily what you want to see in the playoffs.
I mean, but I think the game was kind of decided when Pittsburgh couldn't just score a touchdown, like
Mm-hmm.
like halfway through the fourth quarter and still figuring it out. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think what's especially fascinating is Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson are kind of competing to see who's getting to the quarterback first. And a lot of the times they're being at the quarterback at the exact same time in different ways. I find that super, super hilarious
Mm-hmm.
personally. But
Yeah.
all right. We could talk forever about wild card matchups, so let's kind of go through the Bears and the Packers. I just really want to cover this again because again, glorious day. I don't think Chicago will ever forget about this, like this game that just happened. But the first half was a forgettable one. Bears driving all the way down the field, have a field goal, and then from there it was like pretty much all Packers. Like Bears are going for a fourth down, like their own territory, and like Packers are continuing to score touchdowns, capitalize. The one thing we had going in the first half was McManus missing a field goal. That ended up being a common theme, and from there on, from like 13 minutes left in the fourth quarter, it just became an entirely different ball game. Corstian, talk to me as somebody who grew up in the area, watching the Bears, like has family who are Bears fans, but being a Broncos fan, like what did you see like from this game holistically?
Yeah, I mean, I think a huge part of this was the fact, like we talked about this last week about this game being in Chicago, was honestly one of the largest factors in this Bears win right here. Like on the television, you could hear the crowd going crazy. You could like when the Bears scored and they played like the Bear Down song, like you could hear the crowd like screaming that song at the top of their lungs. Like Chicago fans were so like backing this team as like hard as I've ever seen Chicago fans back there. I feel like it almost feels like they're backing them harder than they did when they went to the Super Bowl with Rex Grossman. I'll forever diss Rex Grossman because he's such a bad quarterback. But
Yeah, man. He was just happy to be there. He admitted it on a podcast. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that podcast thing too, where he's like, I just wanted to play football, and I just happened to managed to get there one way or another, but I'm happy that I did. I'm like, honestly, good for him, but like, yeah, but honestly, like, I just want to say tremendous performances from both quarterbacks. Obviously, like the Packers, like did in fact fizzle in the end of the game, but like I look at Jordan Love's stat line with like 323 pass yards and 4 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions, like. Like I know we both kind of like to diss on Jordan Love, where he's outside of like Toyotathon, he's kind of garbage or whatever. But like, and there's some aspects later in the game I think you could say like maybe they could have done better. But like Josh Jacobs did not play well at all, and honestly, that's huge props to the Bears defense for being able to stop that run. And I think the fact that the Packers couldn't continuously run the ball in the second half to kill clock and sustain drives, really killed all the momentum they had, because this Packers offense that was literally going down the field with ease in the first half literally had like 4 or 5 punts in a row to Chicago. And a couple of those drives on Chicago were pretty disappointing, and you're like, come on, man, like the ball's getting handed to you
There's a
by the
golden
Packers.
opportunity, and you only got a field goal out of it. That was the only thing we scored.
But just the fact that the Bears kept on getting chances to go on offense and to find that rhythm of theirs, thanks to that defense at the start of the second half, was really good. I know people are dissing on them for that one Matthew Golden touchdown, but like, I mean, from my perspective, it looked very clear that the Bears were just trying to strip the ball, and it just ended up being a lot of poor missed tackles because of that, which led to that touchdown. But in all honesty, it got the Bears offense on the field again quick, which I think helped them more than anything, because obviously the Bears are able to continue to drive down and keep the game going, and keep the ball in their own court basically, to get the win.
I mean, yeah, like Matt LaFleur had plays dialed up in the first half. Like you just look at this past touchdown run, like that's just the curl and go is just nasty on the linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to scheme up. But like
Mm-hmm.
I look at a lot of like the Bears just fourth downs where it's like drop passes and then like miscommunication.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Burden one that led to an interception for Caleb. Like I think he was expecting Burden to run a post and then Burden's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, they're kind of just leaving the sideline open, so I'm just gonna drift here and I'm open here. And can't really do that when like you're in the Ben Johnson offense. It's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
timing based and you're supposed to be in certain spots.
Yeah.
So like just having that miscommunication and then obviously the decision and the trust in the guys to go for it in your own territory. And then to have this happen where Christian Watson literally fumbles the ball. They don't
Mm-hmm.
jump on it immediately. And that could have been a potential like game changing
Mm-hmm.
turnover. That was a rough watch the first 3 quarters, especially when the Packers started punting the ball and the Bears could not do anything about it, throwing an interception on fourth. I'm like, come on.
Mm-hmm.
But then from 13 minutes onward, it was just complete joy. I was
Mm-hmm.
like my heart was beating watching every possession because I'm like, gee, especially after the golden touchdown, I'm like, is this how it ends? Like
Mm-hmm.
after like a crazy comeback, partial comeback, and then, um, yeah, they managed to get it done. And I just love the sequencing of play calls from Ben Johnson. The second play of the game, called the screen pass to Burden, had DJ Moore, and then I think it was Loveland or Komet, like
Mm-hmm.
as blockers. And Burden ended up getting like 11 or 12 on the first down.
Mm-hmm.
That game-winning touchdown to Moore is off the exact same action, except Moore fakes like he blocks and he goes straight up the field for the game-winning touchdown. I I love that we finally have a coordinator that not only makes good creative play calls, but sequences them in a way where there's a rhyme and a reason, where the defense thinks everything looks the same, but they're different concepts. And we have
Mm-hmm.
finally have a quarterback. And I just want to say that fourth down pass to Roma Dunze, it's probably everywhere now. But that is one of the greatest passes I've seen in modern NFL history. Not
Mm-hmm.
just not just among like Bears history, because obviously it is. But there's only two guys in the league that can make that throw,
Mm-hmm.
and that's Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think anybody else could have made that throw in the situation. And it feels like Caleb Williams has had like 3 or 4 throws that are just like like throw of the year type throws. It was just especially in that situation where it's like fourth down and like your season's over if you miss it. But that's just and credit to Junze for holding on because he had McKinney bearing down on him. And there were a lot of drops in this game for the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
Like to have that play happen when it did was just I couldn't believe it. My jaw was on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm still processing through the emotions, I guess, like 3 days after the game. But just an incredible victory. And this is part of the end of the half field goal that I was talking about, plus like
Mm-hmm.
McManus this extra point and the field goal. At the end that could have made it 30-24.
Mm-hmm.
Though you can't have that in like the Packers. Special teams has been a problem all year for them, and to have that in
Mm-hmm.
that moment is not. The Bears have had all the momentum at that point, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
help the team out by having that happen. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, rough situation for them. But
Yeah.
sorry, not sorry, man.
Yeah.
All right, I think I'm done.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah, we
cool,
go on the next team.
sweet. Buffalo Bills, Jacksonville Jaguars. This was a great game to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was really disappointed by how it ended because I thought
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence had a fantastic game just
Oh
throughout,
yeah.
and then so did Josh Allen. Like if I'm not sure how you felt about this game, but going into this, like it was not a gimme for Buffalo. Like it seemed, especially with like how limited they've been as a team all year,
Mm-hmm.
like that it felt like it was just going down to Jacksonville with a team as hot as they are. Like
Mm-hmm.
this was not going to be an easy game, and Josh Allen went toe to toe this Jaguars team for a little bit. Like they got to him early,
Mhm.
and it seemed that way, but like, and Trevor Lawrence was dialing it up. But like, credit to Buffalo for sticking in the game, and
Mhm.
yeah, this was a fun watch. I just hate it for Trevor Lawrence. You obviously see the
Mhm.
early pick, but then the pick at the end of the game. That was brutal because I would have loved to see how that last 2 minutes would have played out, but we never got to.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunate end for Jacksonville. Um, like because it did seem like it was whoever has the ball last probably well, by the end of the game was gonna win. But I feel like this game also, I mean, sure there's the interceptions by Trevor Lawrence, but like this game really did feel like it was a Josh Allen versus the entirety of the Jaguars kind of showdown in terms of like star power, which is my initial concern for them going to this game. Because, I mean, Jacksonville did a great job at stopping James Cook. I mean, how did he do in the past game? James Cook had 5 receiving yards and 46 rush yards in the game. Obviously, probably his worst performance, maybe even in his career, right? Like in terms of yards per carry, yards per catch. um, and so like from that, and I was like, it's just really impressive how Josh Allen was basically able to will his team to get into a position where an interception does win them the game. Because I mean, like Josh Allen has his passing touchdown, didn't throw an interception, threw 28 for 35 on his passes, so he was pretty accurate there. 273 pass yards. In addition, he has 11 rush attempts for 33 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. So like the offense was the Josh Allen show. And obviously, they're like Khalil Shakir makes plays, Brandon Cooks makes plays, Keon Coleman made a singular play. Um, but like, yeah, so that's the fear of the Bills, I think, going into every one of these playoff matchups. It's just the fact that, it is the Josh Allen show. And I mean, thankfully, Josh Allen is like the best quarterback in the league. You could argue Lamar Jackson at times, but like, it's like only 2 guys in the league can really will their teams to victory in this way. Um, and we saw it right here with Josh Allen.
You don't want to put Caleb Williams in that discussion after this year?
Yeah, I mean, he's close to there, I think. Would you?
I think it's a little bit early,
Yeah.
being as unbiased as I can, but it's only a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll say this: I hear what you're saying, but I watched the play of the Cooks, I watched the play of the Coleman, and I watched the play of Shakir, and it reminds me of like the Kansas City Chiefs when like they made that unlikely play, a Super Bowl run, and ended up
Mm-hmm.
winning the Super Bowl. This team kind of reminds me like that, where like they have no business being there, but
Mm-hmm.
like I think getting Brandon Cooks was a really, really important acquisition for
Mm-hmm.
the team because the big catch he had to set him up in scoring position, like he had a step or 2 steps on the defender. So like he's been still productive at his age, and he can give the Bills something or not.
Mm-hmm.
Where I am concerned is this upcoming matchup with the Denver Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we I don't know if the pieces Buffalo has will be enough for Josh Allen to help overcome in Denver. So
Mm-hmm.
that especially if James Cook is shut down again. So that's the thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
But as far as like how the Bills winning, I was not surprised. I was not surprised by Josh Allen's performance because
Mm-hmm.
they're the more experienced playoff team,
Mm-hmm.
like between the two. And uh, oh, this is brutal. Like I thought for sure Trevor had it, but like
Mm-hmm.
you look at the Bills in totality, and it's kind of like as long as you have Josh Allen, you have any shot to win any game. So I can't
Mm-hmm.
completely rule them out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, Josh Allen will always keep you in a game, but I mean, like if you do shut down Josh Allen, that's a pretty scary moment for that team for the Bills offense, just because it's like, what more can you really do in that instance? But obviously, it's really hard to do that. That's why Josh Allen won MVP last season, right? And he was one of the runner-ups. Previously, he's literally in this category every single year of will he win the MVP? Um, and so, I mean, that's what happens. Unfortunate injury to Tyrell Shavers, who apparently he has a torn ACL. He got it before halftime.
Oh man.
Crazy thing though is he had 22 snaps of offense in the second half of that game on a torn ACL. Which, I mean, obviously, like ACL injuries are always different from person to person. Like you can play without an ACL technically, but still unfortunate because that obviously ends his seasonal playoff run, especially with like how Tyrell Shavers has played pretty good football kind of the back half of the season. He obviously only had 2 targets in this game, but it's going to be a blow. But obviously, like, I mean, they still have their key playmakers in Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, Brandon Cooks in his moments as a veteran receiver, you know. Keon Coleman occasionally makes a crazy catch. Yeah, so like you said, it'll be an interesting matchup to see against Denver. I think the key difference between Denver and the Jaguars right here is both were top defenses in the league, but Denver did that with the 3rd fewest turnovers forced on defense in the entirety of the league, with only 14 on the season. And so I think that's like that kind of speaks into like the overall game plans that you have to go into facing the Jaguars versus facing the Broncos, where the Jaguars were a top defense with the assistance of being able to force a bunch of turnovers on the season, whereas the Broncos have done more or less the same thing on defense, despite not being able to force those turnovers. So, you know, playing a clean game almost matters slightly less going against the Broncos than it does against the Jaguars, which I
Because
think
they
is
put you behind the 8 ball so much, like you have to shore up your protections.
Mm-hmm.
Like so, yeah, I hear you. Let's move on to the Eagles and the 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
This was this is a tough game to watch if you're an Eagles fan,
Yeah.
because Jalen Hurts did everything to put them in position to win at times, and especially the throws to AJ Brown. But just the continued drops like plagued them, and you saw the same problems that you saw throughout the season. I feel like Brock Purdy was on a heater. Like he, Demarcus Robinson, Jawan Jennings just
Mm-hmm.
absolutely shredded them like early. Like as far as like talk about like taking the crowd out of it from the very start.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, crazy catch by McCaffrey, but like
Mm-hmm.
that, like the 49ers show why, like what could have happened if Brock Purdy was healthy that NFC Championship game
Mm-hmm.
that he got hurt. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I think they're out for blood. I think them and Seattle Part 3 will be a must watch, but it
Mm-hmm.
kind of showed clear levels on like what does Shanahan against Fangio do. That was a great matchup to see.
Mm-hmm.
And early on they were getting the better before Quinyon Mitchell kind of just became crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Saquon early run, like he stood out, but like there are some plays where you're like, man, like this is not the same Saquon as it was last year. And we saw that throughout the season too. So
Mm-hmm.
I think what we saw from Philadelphia is like nothing new, but it's kind of disappointing because of like all the talent we saw from last season and how like they still ended up with like 19 points, especially against the 49ers defense, where we both came back from like the Bears and 49ers game. It was like these two have no defenses. You pretty much can score
Mm-hmm.
against anyone. And I think we both had the Eagles winning this matchup because of the leaky 49ers defense. But the
Mm-hmm.
fact you come away from that game scoring 19 points, really concerning. There's going to be a lot of change in Philadelphia. I don't know if they fired Kevin Petula already, but I would not be
They
surprised
did.
if they do. Okay. Yeah. So uh, this was like this entire season was a primary reason why. But what were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, obviously disappointing performance by the Philadelphia Eagles offense. And like everybody's dissing AJ Brown right now, but it's like he's your best wide receiver. And like, I mean, sure he in the end of the game he had 7 targets or whatever, and he caught like half of those basically. But it's like for a guy who's considered to be a borderline top 5 wide receiver in the league, like you can only you can only think of throwing to him 7 times a game is I think kind of the most egregious part, egregious, however you say it, part of that offensive game plan, where it's like, because like if the Bengals are in this situation, sure T Higgins is going to get his like targets or whatever, but Jamar Chase is going to get targeted 15 times in that game. You look at like if the Vikings are in the same exact situation, Justin Jefferson's going to get minimum 10 targets in this game. You look at how the Rams treat Puka. Puka is getting forced at the ball all the time because he is their superstar. Trey McBride all season is getting like 12 targets minimum a game because he's their superstar offensive threat. CeeDee Lamb, when he was healthy this season, he's getting forced. That's how, despite CeeDee Lamb missing like 5-6 games this season, he hit the 1,000-yard marker. You force feed CeeDee Lamb, you force feed George Pickens, like you force feed your superstars, and like AJ, it's a bad drop by AJ Brown right here, right? Like he should be catching that football, but also like he hasn't caught the ball all game. Like he's like has zero rhythm with catching the football pretty much the entirety of the game. Like he has 3 catches on the game, and that's something you just can't do when you have a borderline top 5 wide receiver in the league in a struggling offense in a playoff game. And it's like, sure, you're feeding Devontae Smith, and Devontae Smith is a good wide receiver, no doubt about that. But I feel like we both can agree that like AJ Brown is the better wide receiver and should be treated as the wide receiver one here. And it's like AJ Brown's a diva, getting like, oh, I want more targets, and it's like, oh, we threw you the ball and we didn't win or whatever. But it's like, how can you put this game on like AJ Brown when he has 3 catches for 25 yards on 7 targets, and you're like, well, you didn't really try to put him in the game in the first place.
I hear you, and I agree with a lot what you said. I think it's not necessarily the amount of targets that concerns me. It's how the targets are happening, because we saw earlier in the game that like that one out route pass that AJ Brown needs to come back 2 or 3 yards for it. And some of the throws that Jalen Hurts he's not throwing them in positions where the receivers can run after the catch. And by the way, just have to say, that George Kittle Achilles injury was rough. That's they're showing it too. That was I feel gutted for the Niners because they have already dealt with so much, and to have like Kittle go out on top of that, like that was a tough watch. So like credit to them for sticking through it and keeping their head in the game. But yeah, that's going to be a definite missed target. And don't know how like Juwan Jennings and Brock Purdy got on the same page like that. That's crazy. But back to the AJ Brown talk. I think the whole conversation with Patullo and how the offense is structured and where Jalen was like placing the ball to put guys in optimal position, they do deserve some culpability as well, in addition to not targeting AJ Brown enough. And I think in Kellen Moore's scheme, you saw like how there was a lot of variety in like how AJ Brown was used and how he'd be in motion and how they'd put him in different spots to create space. You just looked at this last target. That's a contested go ball. Like it's just very like stagnant routes, and like yes, he's running different routes, but like you're not running concepts. You're not trying to get the defense to communicate to mess up and have an AJ Brown come open as a result of that. You're not designed from a play design perspective, and sequencing is not great offense. And I think that has to be resolved this offseason. And if you're having spats like this with a coach in the middle of it, you're going to see the stat lines you do. And I think from a play design perspective, the Eagles got to get much better because they have the talent. You saw it literally the season before. How do you have a 2,000-yard rusher, 2 1,000-yard receivers, a great tight end, Goddard was going off in this game, and have like a Super Bowl MVP at quarterback who's like outplayed Patrick Mahomes in both Super Bowls? Like, how do you have this much inconsistency? And then part of it right now is the drops. Like, that's a key drop by Saquon in a possession where like it's a 3-point game. You can't be making mistakes like that. So I think there's a lot of blame to go on all sides, but the primary thing I would focus on this offseason is like, how do we get innovative on a play design perspective where we're not asking AJ Brown to win one-on-one on routes, because he can do it, but it's not optimal for what the offense needs. That much was clear this season.
Yeah, but then my thing with the drops too is it's like the drops feel a lot worse when it's like you have the 2 drops on like your 7 targets, like specifically in this game, you have your 7 targets and you have 2 drops. So like That looks really bad. But then you look at, like, again, these guys that are hyper targeted in the league, and they have a handful of drops too every game. But it's like those don't matter as much because it's 2 drops on like 15 different targets. And so it's like, oh, they're in rhythm with catching the ball and everything. And so that's kind of might be so. It's a great thing that Patullo's been fired here. I think another mini hot take is they should have just promoted Kellen Moore to head coach over the course of the offseason rather than keep Sirianni around, because like Sirianni kept his job because they won a Super Bowl under tremendous offensive defensive talent more than his own personal ability to coach, is my own personal opinion. I mean, obviously he's an all right enough head coach, but I know Eagles fans who have been saying fire Nick Sirianni even like during the Super Bowl season that they had, just because it's like his mini mistakes were covered by great offensive and defensive coordinators that kind of just carried the squad for him. But yeah, I feel like you can't get much worse than what the offense produced this season in terms of how good of talent you have. Like, obviously you can be like the Titans offense and have 3,000 pass yards and, you know, a bunch of 500-yard receivers or whatever. But like, you have AJ Brown, you have Devontae Smith, you have Dallas Goedert, you have Saquon Barkley, Tank Bigsby's even your backup running back. Like, you have a ton of superstar talent. This poor of offensive results, like, is almost an impressive accomplishment to get like I guess the worst you could do is get Nathaniel Hackett as your next offensive coordinator, I guess. But like,
I was just about to ask you, like, who are your options? And I know the Lions were looking at McDaniel as OC, and if that happens, I'm gonna be so scared because that offense is not going away. But I think he's getting some head coach interviews, because to me, McDaniel would be a great fit for Philadelphia. I think Stefanski would be a great fit for Philadelphia because there's much less mistakes to make with talent. And Kevin Stefanski has had great offenses in Minnesota. That's what led to him taking the Cleveland job. So those are a couple names that come to mind, but I was just curious to see, like, what would you think? Like, who would be a guy that comes to mind right now for them?
Yeah, and like in my head, it feels like you almost go after like it's like, I know what, it's like the Broncos quarterback coach. I think is Davis Webb right now. He used to play quarterback for a couple seasons in the league, and like, I know he's already being like looked at as a potential offensive coordinator to be a play caller. So like, I would like, there's a lot of these kind of like specific position coaches or like play calling coaches or like assistants that I think could really help the Philadelphia Eagles here, even if it isn't one of these big top name guys. I feel like a guy like Stefanski is probably going to be trying to find a head coaching gig before anything, just with, I don't know, some of the success. I mean, obviously Cleveland has kind of sucked, but like, there's been moments where you're like, oh, Cleveland looks like they're kind of competitive. Literally 2 years ago, right? They were competing for the playoffs or something with Joe Flacco. So I'm assuming that he'll probably go after a head coaching spot, but
Todd Monken, also another name that came to my mind immediately.
Yeah. So we'll see, but like, the fact that we've seen how a high-performing Eagles offense can perform literally within just a season ago, and to see how poorly this offense has functioned, shows that, like, sure, there's some maybe issues with the players, but I think most of it comes down to coaching and overall play calling of these Eagles players here. So that's that for me. But good luck to the 49ers in the next game. Obviously, having no George Kittle is going to be a huge blow to this offense. Hopefully everybody else can stay healthy. Congratulations on Jawan Jennings having a second playoff passing touchdown now, which I think ties Justin Herbert's playoff touchdowns or something like that. But
that's a great pivot point.
Yeah.
Let's talk Los Angeles and New England, because honestly, in my opinion, the Chargers having 11 wins this season without Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater is just another more than a miracle itself. And Obviously, Jesse Minter did his job. He held New
Mm-hmm.
England to like what 16 points, but
Mm-hmm.
this was a rough watch if you're a Chargers fan because you're kind of just screaming at the TV, being like, "What is going on? Like, how are we getting so many drops from Keenan Allen of all people? And like, what is like we're doing such a great job on the Patriots. Why can't we capitalize?" But what was your thoughts watching the game?
So I have a lot of thoughts on this. One thing, there's a reason why Greg Roman and the O-line coach just got fired today. So that's like one thing on, I guess, how the Chargers and like an issue with Greg Roman is his ability to like address blitzing and just quarterback pressures. Because I know like on the Ravens, he had Lamar Jackson and he was still struggling with like creating systems that would make it easier for Lamar Jackson to avoid pressure, despite you having the most like efficient running quarterback like of all time. But yeah, ultimately this does come down to just the O line is beat up and the O line sucks so bad right now because of it. I don't know if you saw this, but so there's a couple things about this game. So from the minute 11 mark of the second quarter to the 5-minute 39-second marker of the fourth quarter, the Chargers did not record a single passing yard.
What?
Okay, and then here's fun fact number 2. On 44 dropbacks, which had 31 pass attempts, Justin Herbert was pressured 30 times.
Yeah, O line's an issue. I get it. That's why you make the move. That's why you make the move. That's just
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous because
Mm-hmm. So the
you're
fact
having
that
you're having two teams that are like reliving the Andrew Luck saga again, but the Bengals and the Chargers. Like you
mm-hmm,
cannot expect your quarterback to have a long career like off of that. He's as it is playing for a broken hand, probably a
mm-hmm,
myriad of injuries we don't know about, and
mm-hmm,
you're still not helping him from a schematic perspective. Like you can run 7 offensive linemen, 6 offensive linemen in your scheme. You want to run the ball. Like you have good tight ends that can do that and block. Why
mm-hmm.
not use them? I don't get it.
Yeah, yeah. So
And
like
like, see, look at that. What is he supposed to do from that perspective? He has
mm-hmm,
nowhere to go. Like, just and we're not right. It's just not great play design and like accounting for your team situation and personnel.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and so like there are my gripes with Justin Herbert of performing in the playoffs. Like ultimately, if you're going to win a Super Bowl, there's certain levels of elevation you have to do for the team. Like we saw it throughout the season, where there's been times where he's been able to elevate this team and make this Chargers offense somehow a high-scoring offense. But then we also saw how they performed against the Jaguars earlier in the season, where they put up, it was like we lost like 40-3 or something. I don't remember what the scores, but it was a blowout against the Chargers, right?
Yep.
That's like one thing there, right? But like so the fact that Justin Herbert and the rushing off, like the rush attack, has been able to put up the numbers that they did this season, despite how poor this offensive line has been, is an incredible accomplishment. Is like something to kind of be proud about, at least if you're Justin Herbert here, where it's like you are playing for what you're given, you are playing tremendous football. And it's like if they can just get that offensive line healthy and like get another like key signing or two for this offensive line, like again, like this is a team that at the mid-season mark made a trade for Trevor Penning, who has been declared as like one of the like an all-time bad offensive lineman draft pick. Like that's the guy that you're trying to
If
make
that's
moves
not
with,
desperate, then I don't know what is.
right? And it's like that's how bad this team's offensive line is, to the point where they put him in and then they pulled him out that same game because he is that bad at blocking at the pro level, which is crazy. Um, and so like that, and then I think another concern that less people, I mean, I guess people are talking about now, is just the concern about how the Patriots will do against elite defenses. This is arguably one of the first times the Patriots have gone against a top 10 caliber defense, and outside of that like last touchdown, they looked like they looked like they were struggling quite a bit with that. And now you go, I mean, obviously it's at home, which is going to be nice, but you're going against the Texans, who I'd say probably have the scariest defense in this entire playoff. And so it'll be an interesting matchup, I think, where it'll be a really close defensive head-to-head between the Patriots and the Texans, where both offenses, I think, may struggle against elite defenses on both sides. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the only bright spot for the Patriots was the occasional Kayshon Boutte, but primarily Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre Stevenson had himself a heck of a game. Like it was one of those games where you were asking him to run between the tackles, catch the ball, make some yards after the catch. Um, okay, as soon as I say that, he drops the ball. But if you think about the start of the season, like he's just had drops and fumbles and stuff like that, and you're like, okay, we need to get Trayvon Henderson as soon as possible because Ramondre Stevenson's having the struggles, and he proves his value like in this playoff game. I'm like where he could be successful and like how much the playoff experience that he has matters. So I think seeing him shine was really key, especially in a game like this where possessions are a premium. You're not going to get many scoring opportunities. I think between the 20s, he was the player that stood out to me the most. But I 100% agree with you on that. Like, whoa, who are the rest of the teams? Like, Buffalo knows the Patriots really, really well inside and out. So it might seem like a leaky defense on the surface, but you know Sean McDermott and how he doesn't like to give one look that he has pre-snap. Great, the great running by Drake May this entire game too. That was that made a difference as well. But outside of Sean McDermott's Bills, you're talking about your Denver Broncos defense. We've already talked about them at length, and then we talked about the Texans, who you previewed. It's a really real concern, and it might be one of the things that limits how far the Patriots go. Because even if they do, like the teams coming out of the NFC are equally as talented defensively when you're considering the Rams and the Seahawks.
The Bears.
Second half Packers, yes. You could say the Bears. But I'm not confident in them in San Francisco. But outside of like my whole point is like there's at least 5 or 6 teams remaining that you have valid concerns about the Patriots lining up against and winning the game, starting with this weekend. So we shall wait and see how they handle having a rookie tackle going against Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter. That will not be fun.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get a drink of water. I'll be right back.
No worries. But yeah, I think the biggest thing to take away from this game is that even under all circumstances with the defense, like Drake May continue to make plays that showed like why he's in MVP discussions, like that fake out to Ramondre Stevenson on the option play. That was a huge key component. You saw the big scramble, and then him making key players in moments. Yes, he had a couple turnovers like the fumbles, but I think Drake May is definitely a cornerstone piece to build around. And even if he struggles against the upcoming defenses, like the Patriots are in a much, much better spot than they were at the end of last season. And I consider that a win in addition to all the accolades they have this year. So even if they do end up struggling, I think this game showed like in a game where they're not scoring offensively that much, he's going to do what it takes to win. So positive Drake May talk over here.
Yeah. Obviously, this is, I think, for a lot of teams in this playoffs, regardless of outcome, this should be considered a huge win for their franchises. Because I mean, like the Broncos, sure they made the playoffs last season, but they were kind of like a fringe 7 seed. You know, from going from that to the 1 seed is an incredible accomplishment. The Jaguars being the number 3 seed, incredible. Patriots, being the number 2 seed at 14-3 is incredible. Steelers, I guess, is probably the one team I'm down on of this playoff group. But then the Texans, despite, their struggles with CJ Stroud, had a phenomenal season. 49ers, with all their injuries, played really great. I don't think everybody expected Seattle to be the number 1 seed. That's phenomenal for them. Carolina, again, keeping it toe-to-toe with one of the Super Bowl favorites in the Rams in the wild card round, I think, and them just being in the playoffs in general, I think that's a huge win. Chicago being the number 2 seed and beating the Packers in the playoffs, huge win. What do we got? And then we have the Eagles. Sure, it's an unfortunate end, but it's like, you just won a Super Bowl, and technically losing made you fire Patullo faster. So I guess that's a win if you're an Eagles fan right there. But so there's a lot of, I think, winners, that like the unexpected winners coming out of this, from at least when you look at the start of the season expectations to what we have now.
Yeah, I don't think we have Joe Burrow, Lamar, and Patrick Mahomes not being in this playoff push at this stage of the season coming into this.
Yeah,
And
but
the
honestly,
fact
not
that
having
all
those
these
three
other
guys
teams,
has been a lot of fun.
yeah, like it's kind of surprising. But just recapping this last game here, gonna make it quick.
Mm-hmm.
I already talked about it. It seemed like the Texans handed the game on a silver platter
Mm-hmm.
to the Steelers, and the Steelers didn't want to take it until the
Mm-hmm.
fourth quarter. Pretty much that was the game. Steelers could not figure out how to score a touchdown the entire game. Rodgers was under fire, under pressure. Wasn't getting much help from guys other than DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf went on routes against Derek Stingley, which is really tough to do this season, but he would not capitalize with drops and things like that. Mark Laster is the guy that stood out to me outside of the pass rush, because he had a lot of plays where he would go down into the box, tackle a guy in space, especially a guy like Gainwell. Hard to get him down, and then the next play just break up coverage. So he's a guy that really stood out in this game. I think the bigger point is Mike Tomlin stepping down from head coaching responsibilities. If you're the owner of the Steelers, Corstian, what do? Where do you go from here?
I don't know. It's a tricky situation. Because like Steelers are definitely in a spot where like it feels like they need to suck next season to try to get a top tier draft pick, to get a quarterback, because like with Tomlin stepping down, right? I can't imagine Aaron Rodgers really wants to stay another season with this team, despite the fact that they did go 10-7, which I think is honestly a great way to cap off his career, showing that like in the very end he was still able to make the playoffs, and I think that's almost the best that you can do if you're Aaron Rodgers as a starting quarterback. But so you lose your quarterback there. You have a handful of aging stars on both, mostly defense. Specifically with Cam Hayward. Jalen Ramsey's an older player. You'd have a couple. Joey Porter Jr. is a great young cornerback that you have. Keanu Benton, I think, is a good player too. But like, you have a lot of aging talent here. TJ Watt's near 30 years old now. So it's like, realistically, you got to suck for a year, I think, if you're the Steelers, and try to get one of the top quarterbacks of the following draft class. Because if you try to like, restructure contracts and, sign another veteran quarterback, like, I don't know. I guess you go after Malik Willis technically, right? But I think that this kind of puts you in a situation similar to the post-Drew Brees era New Orleans Saints, where they felt like, oh, well, with Drew Brees, we were a competitor, so we're just kind of a good quarterback away from being competitive. And then now you're in this cycle where, when did Drew Brees retire? Drew Brees retirement. He retired in 2021. We're in 2026. We're 5 years past that, and like, the Saints have just barely found their potential guy at quarterback, right? Because they kept on trying to restructure and think of like, oh, we're just like a little bit away. You can kind of look at the Broncos to a lesser extent, where the Broncos were necessarily in that cap space nightmare, but they were kind of in that cycle of, well, we're a quarterback away. Saints are similar, but in a worse spot. Where
You don't mean Brock Osweiler was the answer?
My take is Brock Osweiler, if he signs with the Broncos, I don't think he has as a disastrous career as that followed. I think he'd probably be a serviceable middle of the road quarterback with the Broncos. I can probably go into depth with that, but like him basically being upset that Peyton Manning came in for the playoffs and deciding he didn't want to sign to the team anymore, I think really derailed his career and kind of showed, I guess, some of his attitude potential issues that he had. That said, I'm super thankful to Brock Osweiler for how good he played that season regardless and helped the Broncos get to a Super Bowl. But like again, it's this situation where it's like Broncos, they signed, I mean, Joe Flacco, you signed Keena. I mean, like Simeon played football. But I mean, Chad was the guy there. Brett played. You know, you had a string of, I mean, Drew Lock, Russell, like a string of guys that you're. Guy could potentially fix their issues. They didn't, and so the Broncos sucked for a long time. The Steelers, if they just nip it in the bud right now and say, okay, we're going to suck for a little bit, but we can turn this franchise around because we have a couple key cornerstone pieces. That's something that this ownership group can work to do. But if they're like, oh, we can win now still, then I think you're looking at a future of 5 or 6 seasons of just sucking really bad.
I hear you. I think it's hard to have that conversation with Joey Porter Jr., Keanu Benton, that offensive line that you recently drafted. Like that's hard to have those conversations with them. So I'm more of the mindset that you have $65 million in the cap right now. You have a lot of aging veterans that you say, and if you choose to go that route, I would just go after Malik Willis and try to find your future guy, and then try to build a sustainable winning program with the win now mindset. I know that's a lot to ask, but I think with that amount of cap space, you have to try and get some players. Like
Yeah.
like
I just hear that like the coaching system. If like it's not a good coaching system, sure you can get Malik Willis and you spend all this money, but like if it doesn't hit, then all of a sudden you're, I mean, in a bad spot. I know you should always try to be competitive, so like I wouldn't be surprised by those moves necessarily. I'm just saying, don't like, don't try to like because I think there's more holes than just like the quarterback position, and then there's a couple stars like running back. I think could use a vast improvement from Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. Hopefully Caleb Johnson could be something right.
good.
DK Metcalf is really the only receiver that's good on this team. I mean, like Calvin Austin's an okay guy, but like I don't want him as my number 2. Adam Thielen is good for what he is. Marcus Valdes-Scantling is almost only here because of his relationship with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe they keep him around anyways. Scotty Miller's just kind of whatever. Ben Skoranek, again, whatever. Tight end position is probably the strongest offensive group with Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, even though he sucked this season, and then Darnell Washington when he was not on the IR list. But then, like I said, like they have good offensive line structure here, and so that's kind of the thing where it's like, that's why I'm like, it's okay to suck for a year or two and then kind of rebound, because that's what good teams do ultimately, where it's like, because it's like what the Chiefs sucked this year, right? But like, are we expecting the Chiefs to suck next year? Likely not. And then it's a similar station where it's like a good franchise knows how to rebound after like a bad couple seasons. Because if you don't know how to do that rebound properly and you just panic, fix holes with band-aids and stuff, like you are in trouble. You know, it was especially even like if Cameron Hayward retires at the end of this, now that Mike Tomlin's gone, that's another like key franchise cornerstone that is gone from your team. Patrick Queen's kind of whatever. I'm looking at the depth chart. Malik Harrison's all right. Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt's good. Again, Jalen Ramsey, I don't know how much longer he can be performing at his elite level. He's an older cornerback, you know. So it's less about like, I mean, sure, they can be competitive the next year, like if things work out, but having question marks around quarterbacks, if your coaching staff isn't up to the task of creating a scheme for a guy like Malik Willis, you know, are you in trouble? If Malik Willis signs something, let's say they can't get any of the hot quarterbacks on the free agent market, then like, you know, what do you do as the Steelers, right?
The thing I'll say is like Cam Hayward is 37. He's making almost $20 million a year. Jonnu Smith, are you seriously going to keep him around because Freiermuth's the future, and then you got Washington? He costs $10 million a year. If you just like cleared those two guys, you're only looking at like what is it, 7 or 8 million in dead cap. That's literally 20 million created right there. That on top of the 65 million you have. So there is a possibility under the right head coach that you'll be able to use those free agents for key signings and really build this from the ground up. So I think there is potential, but it starts with the head coach hiring. Maybe that's bringing LaFleur and Malik Willis to Pittsburgh. That could be an interesting situation. But all kidding aside, I think it starts with having the right head coach and like having a targeted plan where because you're limited on the draft space in the next couple of years, do we just tank or do we try to win, but try to build it in a certain philosophy that everybody buys into?
Yeah, and so that's something like it should be like again, a good team can lose and be bad for a year or two, and then they know how to bounce back, and that's what I think the Steelers can do something like that. I'm also looking at upcoming potential free agent wide receivers, right? And like we have Mike Evans, Christian Kirk, Deebo Samuel, and Diami Brown, Tutu Atwell, and Adam Thielen are like some of the top free agent options entering 2026. And again, it's like, sure, you have the money, but it also depends on the pool. Plus, other teams are also going to be, looking to get some of these top talents. The quarterback position, what we have Malik Willis is good, but then like beyond Malik Willis, Russell Wilson, Marcus Mariota, Zach Wilson, Tyrod Taylor, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Jimmy G, Trubisky, Trey Lance, Gardner Minshew. Like, if you don't manage to get Malik Willis, you're in you're in quite the slim pickings for a starting quarterback, and which is kind of why I was saying, sure, you have the money, but it just depends on the pool where people sign, because just because you have the money doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win every one of these deals either.
Right.
Every team, there's at least half the league is going to have a ton of money to drop on these players. And so it's like, will they come to the Steelers? Will they not? Especially like depending on who the upcoming head coach is. Because if they sign some knucklehead as the head coach, like an Adam Gase, not saying that they will sign Adam Gase as a head coach, but someone that like players may not necessarily want to play under, then that's like a whole nother issue of like, oh well, that makes it harder. Or maybe you do sign a top of the line, like I don't know, if you get like Kevin Stefanski as your head coach or something, then all of a sudden it's like, actually maybe I do want to play here, and so that has a lot to do with it. But again, like it's tricky to like try to bank it all on a free agent quarterback.
John Harbaugh.
I don't think he'd ever go. Like that'd be a crazy move. But to like be spiteful, that would be kind of funny.
I mean, Patrick Queen did it.
Yeah, but then I think it's a situation where it's like, if the Steelers suck next year and they have for some reason the number 1 or top 5 pick, and like they can trade up for like Arch Manning, because he looked good back half of this season, right? Like again, you get the top quarterback prospect of 2027, and that's what you build your team around. Because like sure, you got young stars like Porter, like Belton, but like their careers are not done in 2 years. Like these are young stars that you're expecting to be franchise cornerstones for the next decade, hopefully, or probably not decade, but like 8 years, 6 to 8 years maybe. But yeah.
Alrighty. That will do it for us. I was gonna go into divisional playoff previews, but I think there's a lot of matchups in between 4 games. We'll kind of recap those next week for us. But before we go, Corstian, I know you're already gonna pit the Broncos for the divisional playoff preview. So looking at the other 3 matchups, Texans, Patriots, 49ers, Seahawks, Rams, Bears, who do you have?
Okay. Between Texans, Patriots, I'll give it to the Texans. Seahawks, Niners, I'll give it to the Seahawks. Just like losing Kittle on top of everything kind of just burns me with the 49ers. And then, you know what? I'll be a homer. I'll choose the Bears to beat the Rams.
Wait, I'm sorry. You said Homer and the Bear. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. What led you to choose the Bears now?
Um, I think I mean, like, Bears probably got what, like, after Stafford is the second best quarterback in the NFC in the playoffs, right? Right now?
I want to say yes, but you do got a Brock Purdy he diced this up pretty good. And
Yeah, but like anybody can dice up the Bears. Joe Flacco diced up the Bears defense. Like
second half, Jordan Love didn't.
4 touchdowns Jordan Love did.
That was the first half. Let's look at
Hey,
the second
four
half here.
touchdowns is four. How much more do you need?
Well, we just wanted to give it to him to see like, okay,
Yeah,
how many
yeah,
points
yeah.
can we come back from this time? That's
Mhm.
where the 3 touchdowns came from.
Yeah, I think okay. Quickly, like so, Akella Witherspoon, one of the Rams' better cornerbacks, is out for the season, out for the playoffs, which I think is a huge plus for the Bears. Rome Odunze is in his second game back now, which I think is again a huge benefit. It's going to be in Chicago. Chicago's going to be freezing cold on this upcoming Sunday versus LA Rams, where they're playing in training in pretty nice weather. Matt Stafford is dealing with a finger sprain. I don't know which hand it is on, but like that'll affect snaps regardless, I think, if he's dealing with a sprain. So I mean, sure, I think it'll be near impossible for the Bears to stop Puka Nacua. Like he's insane. I mean, there's a way to do it technically, I guess, for any player really. But like, it's going to be a tough challenge for them to stop that pass attack. But also, I think um, Caleb Williams, one of his best. I mean, his deep ball and his like clutch kind of throws are fantastic. But I think his ability to evade pressure and sacks is probably his best trait that I see out of him. And so if the Rams secondary is dealing with injuries and Caleb Williams is able to do a decent job at evading pressure, I think that this offense can get rolling. And if they have momentum, especially in Chicago, um, I think the crowd will really help again in this game and can, cause an upset despite, them being the 2 seed against a team that had more wins than them over the course of the season. Granted, I mean, obviously it's the Rams, so Rams can win, but also Matt Stafford has been kind of throwing turnovers as of late, and the Bears' number one specialty has been turnovers. Granted, the past 3 games they haven't like forced a turnover at all, which is kind of the concern, but um, average has got to balance out, so maybe they get it again in against the Rams. But anyways, those are kind of my talking points on the game.
They had a bunch of almost turnovers
Mm-hmm.
come up, and they
Yeah, no
haven't
more
kept
body slamming the football, man.
them. Yeah, Jeffs were so mad after that, but I got the Bills. I think this is Josh Allen's best chance to get to Super
Mm-hmm.
Bowl without like all 3 superstar quarterbacks I mentioned in the
Mm-hmm.
AFC for this playoff run.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just think he has a way of winning. There's no other explanation for it. And as much as I love the Broncos defense and what they've had going on this season, I just think the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs go for Josh Allen and he's at his best when it happens. It's just a gut feeling, no analysis there.
Mm-hmm.
Seahawks 49ers, I look at this and I'm like, I have to give it to the Seahawks for all the reasons you mentioned. I
Mm-hmm.
think their defense is the best in the NFC. They're going to confuse Brock Purdy. They just completely confused the 49ers the last time they met. Mike McDonald has a scheme that very few defensive coordinators can match against Kyle Shanahan. I think the Seahawks have the edge there. I also agree with the Texans and the Patriots. I think the Patriots are going to find it hard to deal with the pass rush of the Texans,
Mm-hmm.
and the game will really be up to can CJ Stroud improve.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a 3 point difference. Could swing either way, but I'm leaning the Texans because I think their defense is that much better.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you know where I stand, the Bears and the Rams.
Yeah.
I don't like picking the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't since the playoffs have started,
Mm-hmm.
but I think they have all the momentum right now
Mm-hmm.
coming off that win. I think the thing And the Stafford injury gives me even more confidence to pick the Bears because it seemed to really bother him late in the game against the Panthers, except for that game-winning drive.
Yeah.
I think the thing that also scares me is the fact that the Rams pass rush is not limited to one person. It's
Mm-hmm.
all four people. And the Bears haven't had to deal with that
Mm-hmm.
since like a Vikings game matchup, and they've struggled in matches with the
Mm-hmm.
Vikings.
Yeah.
So that's what's like hard to gauge
Mm-hmm.
right now, plus the Puka factor.
Mm-hmm.
Because with our tackling skills right now, like Puka
Mm-hmm.
is going to be a nightmare to deal with with any team.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's close in the fourth quarter, I I believe in the Bears at this point. Like, if you don't believe now, when will you, as a Bears fan?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I,
Yeah.
I think no matter what happens, this season's been a massive success,
Mm-hmm.
exceeded my complete expectations. So, bear down, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll share my 2 cents about the Broncos Bills. I think first off, I think the winner of the Broncos Bills game goes to the Super Bowl from the AFC side. I think both teams are capable of beating the outcome winner of the New England Houston game. And then two, I think the winner of the Denver versus Buffalo game will predominantly be determined by which team can stop the opposing quarterback from rushing the best. Because sure, I mean, like Josh Allen, I think is a superior rushing threat compared to Bo Nix, but Bo Nix has been able to get a lot of rushing touchdowns done, throughout the season where he's been able to have key scrambles, and so it's like if the Bills can't contain Bo Nix scrambling, I think it's going to cause really big problems for them. And then if the Broncos can't stop Josh Allen's rushing ability, that's going to cause a bunch of problems for them, like we saw how the Bills were able to beat the Jaguars right here, right? And so just
Yeah.
whichever team is able to contain the opposing quarterback's rushing ability the best, I think will be an indicator of who wins out between the Bills and the Denver Broncos.
Yeah. One quick note on that. Only question I have is, can Denver get home versus Josh Allen?
Mm-hmm.
I know they can against any other quarterback, but
Mm-hmm.
Josh is one of those guys like Caleb where it's hard to get him on the ground. And can Benito, can Cooper, can company,
Mm-hmm.
can they keep their heads up
Mm-hmm.
and continue playing, continue trusting that they will eventually
Mm-hmm.
get him?
Yeah.
That's gonna be a major factor because that drives that defense when you're talking about coverage matching the D line. They have great
Mm-hmm.
corners, great secondary, but you cannot let Josh get any momentum and
Mm-hmm.
from like one play where he's able to escape. So
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be hard. It's a very difficult
Mm-hmm.
challenge. But hey, there's 8 teams remaining, 4 in the conference. There's a reason you're at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And winning the Super Bowl is not easy. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, rooting for the Broncos in my head. My heart's
Mm-hmm.
just got to say the Bills though
Yeah.
because of Josh Allen. If it was any other QB, even Mahomes this year, I would have picked the Broncos. But
Yeah.
this is this is one of the best QBs in the NFL we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about.
Yeah.
Still in it right now.
Yeah. And ultimately, if it wasn't the Broncos winning, my dream Super Bowl would be Chicago versus the Bills. I think that would make for great Super Bowl television.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, I think two great storylines. If not the Bears, I think the Seahawks would be my next favorite. I mean, actually, I hate the Seahawks, but seeing the Seahawks be over the Rams and the 49ers is my preference.
Why do you hate the Seahawks? They have such a great defense. Like their offense is coming along. Like
Mhm. I
they're a
think it's
great
more
team.
like it's like historic rivalries. The Seahawks used to be in the AFC West in the division instead of like the Chargers, I think.
They had
Um,
a great shutdown defense too, if you
mhm.
recall.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry,
So
I had
obviously
to
there's
bring
a
that up.
little rivalry there, but um, yeah. But those are my thoughts. Cool.
Alrighty. We went over super long. The recording says 20 minutes, so I'm hoping it didn't cut off any of the episode that would suck. But you can
Mhm.
follow us on our Instagram channel at amon.a.mission. YouTube channel is Amon Mission. Corstian, do you have anything you want to say to the public before we leave?
But peace out. I don't think it'll happen, man. Okay.